7:28. Actually, I got 7:26 and a half. Precinct 1, what is your attendance?
9.
Well, that's better than the other day. Precinct 2. Precinct 2 is 16. Precinct 3. Precinct 3 is 10. Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is 12. Precinct 5. 13 and a half. Who's a half?
We don't do fractions.
13? Oh, all right, I get it. A future voter. Precinct 6. Precinct 6 is 10. Precinct 7. Precinct 7 is 10. Precinct 8. Precinct 8 is 10. You showed them all up. How many you got?
90.
There are 90 town meeting members present. A quorum is 78. Will you please rise and join me in saluting the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask you to remain standing for a moment of silence for members of some of our town meeting family. Joseph J. Gambrazio on June 18th, at the age of 95, uncle to Selectman Cynthia Walsh. Dolores Smith, 73. June 22nd, former Precinct 7 representative and wife of Arnold Smith, who is from Precinct 7. And Sandra Raphael, the mother of Deanna Chasso, who is the payroll clerk for the town hall. I'm not going to read that. I'm going to. There was a blue sheet handed out. On the other side is an ecology that I promised, still complete with a few errors, but they're there. There's more people coming in. That's why I do that. Schedule is what we have tonight. I'm very optimistic that we should be out of here fairly early. And the only things that we have, all the information that is pertinent to this meeting has been distributed in a timely fashion. And I'm not going to review our session on June 19th, so I don't even want to count how many articles we did get done, but it was a lot. We commenced our business at 7:30 p.m. and adjourned at 10:35 p.m. And if somebody wants to, most of the articles have all been recorded as such. And it is now 7:30. Actually, this is our legal time for starting, provided my book doesn't fall apart. I bought a an inch and a half binder. That was being optimistic that it would have that much town meeting business. It is now 7:31. Mr. Hill, Article 71. No, 70.
That the town vote to appropriate $184,200 to purchase 3 cruisers and 1 SUV, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow $184,200 under General Laws, Chapters 44, Section 7, Paragraph 9, or any other enabling authority.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Cullen?
The only thing I want to say is, the chief came last year, and I want to congratulate the police department. They were certified. There was a little article in the newspaper, and congratulations to the Stoughton Police Department and the chief. We are a certified police department.
Does the chief want to make a presentation on any of on this article? Or just answer questions? Mr. Soares, on the article.
Chief Shastny needs our limited resources to protect the town of Stoughton. We have given to our future leaders. It is now necessary to share our scarce resources with our leaders of today. The police needs their tools to keep the town safe. Is there anybody in this hall that would deny the police force its tools to do its job to protect us? We know there is dope being peddled in this town. Dope is everywhere. We would not deny the school their tools, and just to put it in a perspective, in proper perspective, the police budget is only 13% of the school budget. We are of different denominations, and our life holds no greater or less value than another's life. In other words, life is very, very precious to all of us. The value of the police in this town is such that this town needs the protection of the police to keep law and order, just as it states in the Constitution. We as a legislative body to this town, with our limited resources, must use these resources with great care. It is our responsibility to give to the police department their survival tools so that they know we back them, because when their life is on the line, they must have the proper tools necessary to save their life. What is the point I am trying to make? Any man or woman that lays down his life has my full respect, and whatever I can do to help him or her, I will do it. Please vote for this. Thank you.
Ms. Bronson? Mr. Coleman?
Wait a minute. On the original, the way the article was originally, it said, in addition to standard emergency equipment upfit and requesting 2 new radar units for these vehicles. Should that be part of the motion to the Finance Committee?
Our understanding that it'd be a completely equipped vehicle, so.
All right, so it's assumed. That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Bronson?
These cars that we have are Chargers, and to get a new Charger is the best, economically speaking, the way to go, because the cages that are very expensive can be transferred from the old to the new. These are cars that are running 24 hours a day. They have a different electrical system and a heavy-duty alternator to carry forth that electrical system. The Chargers have better agility, they hold the road better, they have more horsepower, and they take off like a rocket. They have a better weight distribution. Of all the cars that are available, the Dodge Charger is the best way to go. And as the previous speaker noted, our chief is someone who is a very hardworking man who has received awards for the FBI Association of Executive Leaders. We have to trust in him. We've gone through the shame of a bad police chief, a convicted felon, causing our town to be called Banana
Ms.
Republic.
Bronston, this is an appropriation article. Keep
Okay.
it short. I want to go home tonight.
Pass this, okay, pass this article.
Mr. Murphy.
Peter Murphy, Precinct 2, move the question.
Has to cut off debate. All those in favor of cutting off debate, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As this is requires a two-thirds vote and borrowing, if it's not unanimous, I will have you stand and exercise your legs for a minute. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, I will declare it unanimous. And it's approved. Article 71. Mr. Hill.
That the town vote to appropriate $16,000 to purchase replacement and installation of carpet for the police station, and to meet this appropriation, $16,000 be transferred from free cash.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Article 16, and you may want to have a single motion all the way. I recognize the town manager for Articles 16 to 22.
Mr. Moderator, be brief. I'm going to be brief.
Did you want to speak?
If I may, thank you. Through you to the town meeting representatives, thank you very much. And not to be picayune, but we are accredited. The certification is the first step. So we are among the elite. We are the elite. We're the best.
Mr. Hanzavino.
Mr. Moderator, on Article 16, we ask that this be postponed indefinitely.
Is that, did you say for all?
Nope.
Or just for one?
No, we'll do them one at a time.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, do we need to take these off the table first?
All right, I'll make sure we take it off the table. It's a good procedure to do. Mr. Hill, on the motion to take off the table, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, now, we'll record it. It's off the table, and Mr. Hanzavino has asked a motion to postpone indefinitely. It is not a debatable thing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is It's a polite way of saying that we don't have time to finish and they weren't finished. It means that we will not take it up any further. That means it's over with, we didn't kill it, it can come up again in another town meeting, or whatever. Article 17, Mr. Anzavino.
Mr. Moderator.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm
Hanzavino.
going to move that we
Take them all off.
take Articles 17 through 22 off the table.
All those in favor of taking 17 to 22 off the table, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries.
On Article 17, Mr. Moderator, I ask that we postpone this indefinitely.
On the motion to postpone indefinitely, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries.
Mr. Moderator, on Article 18, I ask this be postponed indefinitely.
There's not supposed to be any discussion. I'm already unprogrammed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries.
We on 18 now?
19.
So we do 18?
Article
Mr. Moderator,
19.
on Article 19,
Yeah,
I move to dismiss this article.
dismiss?
Dismiss, the funding's already been put in the contract, into the budget.
Okay. All those in favor of dismissing? I heard the second. Yes?
Come to the mic.
Please go to the microphone. This thing is being broadcast and recorded.
Do we have anything to say anymore of how much they got for a pay raise? What are the difference from one contract to another? It seems it's put in the budget, and we have nothing to say about it.
You voted the budget.
I understand, but we didn't vote any contract in that budget either.
I'll let Mr. Hill explain some of this.
The Finance Committee was provided copies of the two approved contracts, one for the superior officers and the other for the library. The monies were built into the individual budgets for those departments, and we did vote those approval of both those departments. So, but the contracts were not distributed widely, to my understanding.
Mr. Moderator, what is the point of town meeting if we can't have any say? We're asked to advise on certain things after last week. We used to be able to ask about contracts. I guess that's going by the board now. What is town meetings used anymore? Our hands have been tied now, and before we know it, we won't be able to ask any more questions on any of this. We're voting on stuff, it's put in the budget, we don't get a copy, we don't ask questions, we don't have anything to say of how much these people got. Just out of courtesy, we always did this. Why did it change?
For your edification and everybody else's edification, for many, many years we've, even though it has been the statute, town meetings' official role is to vote on the appropriation for funding of contracts, not the contents of the contracts, although it is privileged information of the Finance Committee to understand what is reasonable in those contracts. And at a prior session to this town meeting, we adopted a personnel bylaw, which is going to be the foundation of almost all the contracts. So essentially, that's the status of things. We will still have a say in town meeting about funding contracts, and that prior session that was put in the budget is, my understanding, they already have an agreement. Is that correct? The superior
The
officer?
superior officers and the library staff did come to an agreement. We have signed contracts, signed ratified contracts for those two bargaining units. And that's why that money was put back into their budgets on
Whenever
session
we
number
did
2.
it. So on the motion to dismiss, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Article 20.
Mr. Moderator, on Article 20, I move that this be postponed indefinitely.
All those in favor of postponing indefinitely say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Article 21. Mr. Yanzavino.
Mr. Moderator, Article 21, I move that we postpone this indefinitely.
That's to postpone indefinitely. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. Article 22.
Mr. Moderator, on Article 22, I move to dismiss this article.
And the motion to dismiss, I believe the explanation for this is the contract is
The
signed.
contract has already been signed and the money has been put in the budget.
All those in favor of dismissing?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. Murphy.
Peter Murphy, Precinct 2. Through you, Mr. Moderator, through the selectmen, someone can answer this. We approved money to be put in the selectmen's budget for negotiation purposes. Seeing that these articles have been tabled indefinitely, does that money then get taken back out of that account?
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, at this point in time, we are still in negotiations, and we would rather see that money left in the collective bargaining reserve in the selectmen's budget.
Okay, so before that money can be released, do you have to come back before town meeting?
Yes.
Before the money could come out of the reserve fund, we would have to come back to a town meeting or a special town meeting in order to move the money from the reserves to a particular unit so the money could be dispersed. That's correct. That was explained when I asked to table these to the end of town meeting. Because that's the only way you can disperse the money, and without a contract, there's no way we can assign any money to a particular article. We do not know what money would be needed.
So if we end town meeting this evening, there would have to be a special town meeting to release that money?
That is correct.
Thank you.
On the next article, Article 72, calling the chairman of the Municipal Regulations Committee to bring a basic motion on the floor. And I don't want you to read this whole thing, as your committee did approve it.
I make a motion the town meeting accepts Article 72 as written.
Is the animal control officer present? Present. At this time, we'll ask you to make any presentations since you were the co-petitioner.
Mr. Moderator, selectmen, townspeople, just so you are aware.
Come a little closer to that microphone.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
You sure? Governor Patrick signed into law August 2nd, 2012, Chapter 140, Section 157, based upon the breed of a dog. You cannot have a specific bylaw. I did have a member of the community question me about this earlier this evening. Again, if anyone is unhappy with that question, they can bring it up to the governor or members of the state. In terms of increasing the charge for running at large, 78-6, from $50 to $60, that really goes hand in hand with the traffic discussion at the last meeting. With the increase in traffic, unfortunately, there has been an increase in many individuals' beloved pets being struck and killed by vehicles. So in essence, it's a way of trying to make people understand that this is not a small town anymore, and if you do let your dog run in the street, at some point it's not coming back. Thank you.
Mr. DeFelice? Oh, all right. You guys sitting in a different order.
Peter Murphy, Precinct 2, Municipal Operations Committee. One thing that I was upset about was our meeting members didn't show up. What is even worse is the maker of an article doesn't show up. The maker of the article did not show up for either hearing. So I don't know whether or not this really had a public hearing.
Well, it was,
Was it on your agenda? Did you take
It was on the agenda.
And you took it up?
We could, yes, we did.
Conference. Did you have a quorum?
We had a quorum the second night.
you did have a public hearing on 4-3 with the Regulations Committee. So somebody heard it. It's on my records here that they didn't have a hearing on the 3rd.
Well, the maker of the article did not show up for our hearing, and that's very upsetting. I'm going to vote against this just for that principle.
Mr. DeFelice.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. People have said to me that the pit bull is a misunderstood breed. So I went to Wikipedia just to see what they had to say. They define the pit bull breed as an American Pit Bull Terrier, an American Staffordshire Terrier, Staffordshire Terrier, and any crosses amongst these breeds. And also in a few parts of the world, they mention that the American Bulldog is included, but it's not, it has major genetic differences from these other dogs. These breeds are the majority of dogs used for illegal dog fights. You might remember former NFL quarterback Michael Vick, who was convicted and spent time in prison for his fighting activities. A nine-year study from...
Before you continue, Mr. DeFelice, I want to remind people that we're voting, if you look at from page 87 to page 89 is the text of what we're voting for. And the reference to a Pit Bull Terrier, American Staffordshire Terrier, is called section 78-11, and that is being stricken from the law. The other changes in the law is we've elevated the position from dog officer to animal control officer, and essentially those are the only changes that are being asked in this law. If you wish to continue, fine.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and that's why I'm bringing up some background. I think I have the floor, sir. If you want to come up, I'll share it with you. Come on down.
Mr. Gito, what's the point of order?
The point of order is that the dog officer indicated that it's against the law to have specific animal types designated. So if we're going to continue this discussion, it should be continued with the legislature or the governor.
Well spoken, Mr. Gito. And if you continue in that vein, I'm going to be out of order.
Along what vein?
Conclude your statement.
Can I speak about, I can or cannot speak about pit bulls? The article addresses changes in the law regarding pit bulls, right?
The change in the statute has already been enacted, as Mr. Gito has pointed out and Mr. Gormley has pointed out. And therefore, he is only making this law conform to the state statutes. And
We still can't speak about it?
because there's all the speaking about this kind of stuff going on with our laws should have been done in the State House. With your, what's that?
Next time I'm there, I will do that next time I see the governor. Thank you.
Mr. Combs.
I was the pro-chairman of the committee that approved this, and that's exactly what we approved. But this gentleman wasn't there, but the town manager was there. Personnel director was there that night. But don't forget, the first night, we never had a quorum there. We couldn't get a quorum. So they were there. If we had any questions, they were well-versed. But basically, what we're doing is just reinforcing the law that was set down from the State House. I support this article, and I hope you do too.
Mr. Coleman?
Eric Coleman, Precinct 5. What is a neat animal?
One that's not
Mr. Gormley, can you,
It cleans up after itself. No. Neat animal it's a very antiquated term that is actually still on the books. It does more or less talk about hoof stock, meaning livestock, sheep, cattle, swine. That's generally what it refers to. It does not refer to dogs and cats.
Mr. Gator?
Dennis Gator, Precinct 3. Move the question, please.
As to cut off debate on the article as of the motion for Article 72, which is, the text is on, and I'm just clarifying the record, page 87 to 89, requires only a majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. I declare it a majority vote. And that's 7:58. At this time, I'm going to recognize a motion to discuss Articles 73, 74, and 75 together. This is the report of the Town Code Committee.
So made?
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor of discussing these three articles together?
Aye.
All right, in this procedure, all right, first of all, I have to make a statement, and then I'll be down, I'll be passing the gavel to the deputy moderator while I make a presentation as the chairman of this committee. The timer even goes off when it, shut up, you. Oh, it don't shut off. Maybe that's not mine. Anyhow, the moderator's statement is this. The moderator has asked the deputy moderator to preside over the deliberations on Articles 73, 74, and 75 for the following reasons. One, the moderator is chairman of the Town Code Review Committee and believes it's more appropriate to present the report of the committee from the floor and be available to explain the recommendations for Articles 74 and 75 that are being offered. And two, the moderator has filed a disclosure of special municipal employee of financial interest in a municipal contract as required by General Laws, Chapter 268A, subsection 20C. He has incurred substantial expenses relative to research on behalf of a request from prior town managers regarding the organizational town committee memberships, appointing authorities, terms of appointment and purpose, and to the material that had not been included in prior compilations of the town code. This work requires persons familiar with the town meeting form of government and the manner in which town meeting and executive departments can establish committees beyond those which are specified in the town charter. So at that point, I'm passing the gavel to Mr. Mullen, and I will present my report from the floor.
First rule of order is to go easy on the moderator right now this evening, okay? No second required, thank you. Okay, let's, Mr. Hill, on Article 73, could you read the motion?
That the town vote to appropriate $15,000 to supplement the funds appropriated under Article 823, ID 38 of the 2010 annual town meeting for the purposes of completing the business of the Town Code Publishing Committee, and that to meet this appropriation, $15,000 be transferred from free cash.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. I recognize Mr. Howard Hanson.
He recommended me? Oh, okay. Gee, I still have to come to the microphone even when I get down here.
We have a time limit, sir, so get moving.
And I left you with a timer. No, I didn't. I got it here.
Ouch.
In all seriousness, this is a very important committee because our town bylaws have been in disarray for quite a while. Now, the purpose, and not, our charter also requires that every 5 years, we make sure that these are published and updated. Now, updated meant that things that have passed between the first time you did it and the next time you did it are properly put in the town code book. Well, I stood before this town meeting somewhere in the last century, better than 30 years ago, and we had a problem then, and we contracted with an out-of-state firm. Now we're finding many things that have not been included. And on 3 occasions, I had 3 different town managers come to me and say, have you got a list of town boards that we appoint, when they were appointed, how long they've been around? Some have just appeared because something was taken out of the budget. But there is a process, and you're supposed to, if a committee has been established, it is supposed to be, if it is done, brought before town meeting in discharge of its duties. In some of our preliminary research, those things have not, I have not, since I've held the gavel, ever saw an article in the warrant to dismiss any committee, whether it's be created by town meeting or not. And many communities settle this sometime in the future when this project is done, if ever. There'll be a recommendation to dismiss and discharge officially some of these committees that have gone into the sunset. I don't think we have Holgreaves anymore. They are ancient, but they were elected in our first town meeting. However, that being said, we've kind of got stalemated in this process in the Code Committee. So my formal report I'm highlighting on is we've been piecemeal reviewing both the charter and the zoning bylaws because those were never officially adopted in 2006 when it first came before town meeting. And as we go through this, we found that the contracting publisher has made changes in either the format, display, or did not, I repeat this, did not make the corrections that they were told to make corrections on. Very significant. So therefore, when the subsequent articles, motions on these for Articles 74 and 75 do not ask us to follow the same process of sending piecemeal changes, but to create for these 2 documents one master copy properly signed and attested to as being complete, and just as it had been voted, all these changes had been voted properly and accepted by the Attorney General's office or whoever is responsible for that. And essentially, and I'm going to be very candid, when I went through, I've been sticking with the charter since its adoption, I was nearly out of my mind when I showed up at the hearing and found myself sitting with equally upset people who proofread it, the charter, and found that what is still in the town code book going up on the website has not been corrected as we had requested. So therefore, that particular process that we're going through now is not accomplishing what we set out to do. This time, we will keep it internal. That means until the town code committee sees and is thoroughly proofread and concurred with town council that these documents are correct as they were voted, we will not send them off to the contracting publisher. So far, the process of this is we've examined over 50 years of town reports and finance committee reports, and finding quite a bit is missing from our town code book. So at that stage, I'm going to ask acting moderator to, first of all, if there's any questions on what I'm doing. I forget that I'm up there.
I should say, Mr. Hanson. Refer to the current moderator if you have any questions.
Mr. Snyder. I say, okay, I don't know who you are.
Mr. Snyder for Precinct 2. You want to use the microphone, please?
That's all, to cut off debate, as you understand. I'm real program.
All right. Where's the constable? All right, okay, we're going to take each motion one at a time. We'll vote one at a time here. All right. Right, I'm just letting everybody know. Thank you, Mr. Snyder, for your input. All right, on this article, let me just put my specs on. Article 73, motions are made to cut off debate. There's been a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right.
Now we need the motion for the...
Well, okay, on Article 73, ID 73, on report and supplemental funds, town code publication, to appropriate $15,000 to supplement the funds. Appropriate on Article 23, ID 38 of the 2010 annual town meeting, and as written in the warrant. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I declare that a vote. All right, Article 74, ID 71. Mr. Hill, could you just read that into the record?
The motions are on page 239 for this article. That the town meeting by resolution authorize and cause the town code committee, in cooperation with the planning board, town engineer, and town planner, to prepare a master copy of the zoning bylaws and map that is to be certified as a true copy of the zoning bylaws of the town of Stoughton, as amended through 2012. This certification shall be attested by the town clerk, town council, town engineer, and the town manager. And further, that the town code committee to direct general code publishers to reproduce the master copy of the zoning bylaws without any further editorial services or format changes. The master copy of the zoning bylaw shall be kept in the town, kept by the town clerk.
All right, Mr. Hanson, I recognize you.
Oh, I guess I don't have to read that again. That's, all I will explain, it is a resolution, and it's simply a yes or no vote.
Mr. Hanson, did you already read the resolution?
That's what Mr. Hill did.
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies. I apologize to the crowd, yeah? All right. Motion to cut off debate?
Aye.
All right. Those opposed? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now Article 74.
That's in 74.
I know, regarding the resolution.
Okay.
I just want to, can I just have a little order here?
Okay.
According to my records, we need a
No.
2/3
No, you do not. No, you don't need a two-thirds.
No? Okay, it's in the record here. Okay, we don't need a two-thirds. On the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Declare that a vote. Article 75, ID 72, Mr. Hill.
That this town meeting by resolution authorize the Town Code Committee to direct general code publishers to reproduce, without any further editorial services or format changes, the current town charter master copy as kept and certified by the town clerk, and to be as the official document known as the Stoughton Town Charter adopted in 1971, with all the amendments adopted through the year 2011.
All right, any discussion? Mr. Murphy?
Move the question.
Second? Okay. All those in favor of the cutoff debate, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? On Article 75, ID 72, the resolution as written in the warrant, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Declare that a vote. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My book will be coming out next year. All right, Mr. Moderator is taking back over.
Okay. It's funny how you forget where your position is sometimes. Yeah, now. Article 76. This can be put on by the town manager or the town engineer. This is the flood hazard zoning map bylaw. Since the town engineer is not here, Mr. Hartman, he's not a voting member of town meeting. The non-voting members of town meeting who can put motions on the floor include the town manager, chairman of the board of selectmen, chairman of the school committee, superintendent of schools, the town engineer, as well as the chairman of the board of the finance committee if he is not a town meeting member. So therefore, at this time, the appropriate person for putting this on is the town manager.
I move that the town vote to amend by replacing the Town of Stoughton zoning bylaw section IIIE, flood hazard, wetlands, and watershed district sections 1 to 5 to reflect the changes in the federal flood maps, which I believe were available at an earlier meeting, and I'll turn it over to Tom.
I would recommend that you use the term as printed in supplementary material distributed by the building commissioner at the May 20th session.
This article, like the zoning article that I spoke about at the last town meeting about abandonment of, the time limit on abandonment of non-conforming uses, and similarly to the dog bylaw that we discussed a few minutes ago, this is an attempt to bring our regulations into compliance with state and federal law. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is the agency that's in charge of flood insurance. They also issue flood maps. At last year's town meeting, the town meeting voted to adopt new FEMA flood maps. I provided copies of those and brought them to the meeting, one of the meetings 2 weeks ago.
Essentially, what we're trying to do here is to play a little bit of catch-up. When we were advised by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, who's FEMA's agent for enforcing the FEMA rules in town, we were advised last year that not only did we need to adopt the revised flood maps, but we needed to make certain changes in the flood hazard bylaw to reflect the current regulations. We weren't able to do that last year because we weren't, at least the engineering department and planning department and myself weren't cognizant at the time that in order to change the zoning ordinance, we needed to have a public hearing. And so we weren't able to do that last year, but we promised the DCR folks that we would do that at the earliest opportunity. Town Council, Brian Riley and the people from DCR negotiated back and forth and came up with the language, the expanded language that was passed out in a, and at the very first town meeting. It's a little bit more substantial than the one page that's in your printed warrant. But essentially, it's replacing what was the flood hazard bylaw with the new text. And this is essential to do in order to bring ourselves into compliance with the state law. And being in compliance with the state law is necessary for the property owners who happen to be in low-lying areas that show up on these maps. It's essential that we adopt this so that they will be covered by flood hazard insurance. I hope that's sufficient explanation. If it's not, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Murphy?
Move the question.
That's to cut off debate. Now, this is a zoning bylaw. It requires a two-thirds vote. If it's not unanimous, I will take account. I remind you that that motion was just done. And it is very impolite and out of order to interrupt the speaker to make that motion. We do, everybody was distributed a copy of the floodplain zoning map, and that is in compliance with our own bylaws and rules. On the motion, which is to accept the flood hazard zoning bylaw and map as distributed by the building commissioner on May 20th. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Therefore, I heard some dissent on that. All those in favor, please rise, and the chairman take account. Okay, I could also do the reverse, but I've already started the process. All those in favor, please rise. Take account. Precinct 1. How many are there? 13. It's also an attendance count. Precinct 2. Precinct 2 is 17. Precinct 3. Precinct 3 is 12. Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is 14. Precinct 5. Precinct 5 is 13. Precinct 6. Precinct 6 is 11. Precinct 7. Precinct 7 is 9. Precinct 8. Precinct 8 is 6. All those opposed, please rise and take, chairman, take count. Precinct 1. Precinct 2. Precinct 2 is 0. Precinct 3. Precinct 3, 0. Precinct 4. Precinct 4, 0. Precinct 5. Precinct 5 is 0. Precinct 6. Precinct 6 is 0. Precinct 7. Precinct 7 is 1. Precinct 8. Precinct 8 is 4. How many you got, Steph? How much? I am not adding, that's why I give you the kick. The motion carries, is 95 yes, 5 no. The motion is approved. 22. Article 77, Mr. DeFelice.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My partner in crime, Mr. Ventresco, has been laid up for about a month with a knee operation, so we haven't had much time to prepare, so we're going to ask to withdraw 77 and 78.
One at a time.
Move to withdraw 77, or dismiss, or whatever.
Dismiss. All those in favor of dismissing, say aye. All those opposed, motion carries.
And 78, ditto.
On the motion to dismiss, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Now, we're coming down. Article 79, Mr. Hill.
That the town vote to establish and fund a capital reserve for future building project stabilization fund to help defray the debt service costs of future buildings design and/or construction projects, in that $1,251,792 be transferred into this fund from free cash.
The number is,
$1,251,792.
oh, I got to do, okay. What is it? Repeat, I was distracted here. For the third time, what's the number?
$1,251,792.
Second. Mr. Hill, will you explain this, since this is a new stabilization fund?
Well, essentially, the Board of Selectmen, in their wisdom, decided to establish a building fund. We talked about this, that myself and the chair of the Board of Selectmen last year, to establish this fund. A warrant article was put forth to do that, knowing or anticipating future building needs. The capital assets involved here will be in excess of $60 million. And those would start hitting any time from the next 5 to 10 years. So included in that list would be the library, which has been approved for $14 million, a high school with a statement of interest being reviewed currently by the MSBA, and the need for the replacement of Fire Station 1 with potentially a public safety facility which would combine the fire and police together. So it seemed to make sense to the Finance Committee to begin this fund and to fund it with as much available free cash as we had at that point, after spending about approximately $700,000 in free cash on articles, and the residual we put into the stabilization fund.
Any discussion? Mr. Hanson.
It's not clear to me, but I'm sure this is the intent. This is only for town buildings, because it doesn't say here.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure.
It would be for the town of Stoughton.
Mr. DeFelice.
Mr. Moderator, through you to Town Council. Council, if we approve this, is this a de facto means of circumventing any Proposition 2.5 type things going to the populace? In other words, by doing this, the taxpayers will have no say, as I see this, as to whether they want to spend big bucks on various projects.
I think I can answer that, Mr. DeFelice, right now.
Could council answer that?
No, I'm going to answer it because it comes in the jurisdiction of what is a specialized stabilization fund, which was these laws that created specialized stabilization funds came about 2005. They made two significant changes in the process of voting on stabilization funds. One, you have to have two-thirds to put it into, and you have to have a two-thirds vote of town meeting to take it out. So we definitely have a say on where and what that money is to be used for. And that's this body's responsibility.
Mr. Moderator, through you to you. That's all right. Mr. Moderator, I guess my concern was that on major projects that normally would go through to a ballot question, would that still happen, or is it eliminated by this procedure? That was my question.
No, all this is saying we have some money put in the bank so that we don't have to go out and borrow one whopping big amount, and it says it's a designated account only to be used for the designated purposes. There is a very sophisticated process with the Department of Revenue, which I don't even want to explain.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, this means that the individual voters of the town
Mr.
would
Moderator.
not have a say, right?
Mr. Hill.
These stabilization accounts require a two-thirds vote by this body to move money out.
I'm not talking-
In and out. So it can't, no construction project could take place unless this body approved it.
But I'm not talking about this body, I'm talking about the individual taxpayers that are footing the bill who normally would have a say when these projects would normally go to a vote.
Mr. Moderator, if I could, the townspeople have the say of how this money gets spent by electing this body to come in and work for them. That's how this would be done. This is just starting a savings account to start putting some money away that you would have some finances available when you're going out and you're going to do these buildings. $1 million isn't going to build the building. All it's going to do is set some funds aside. We could have just put it in the stabilization fund. It's the same thing. Still takes two-thirds to go out. The intent of this was to set it up to show that we knew we had some capital funds required to update the buildings in town. We know that. We had the report from 2010. We understand the $50 million price tag they put on it back then just to upgrade them, let alone replace them. That's all this is, Mr. Moderator, through you to the Speaker. It's a savings account to start you along. Ed, you're not going to be building the buildings out of this fund alone, not this year, not next year, not in the next 10 years, but it will give you some funds to start you out with it. And anything that would be needed for an override or an exclusion would certainly have to go before the voters of the town. But for this money, that's what we're all elected to do, to operate for the people in this town, is to make the decision on whether we should even start this. That's what I think this body's here for, and I think the town has enough confidence that we'll do the right thing.
Mr. Moderator, through to the previous speaker, when we have a town meeting that doesn't have one no vote on an appropriation, what's that tell the people that are sitting back home paying the bills? I rest my case.
That they elected the right people.
Mr. Murphy. Mr. Hill, do you want to comment in reply?
Actually, no, I forgot $294, so I'm going to amend my motion after Mr. Murphy makes his motion, his statement.
Should I wait? You want me to wait? You want to do it?
Oh, wait a minute.
Move the question.
Has to cut off debate. Did you say that there's a change in the dollar amount?
There was an additional $294 left remaining in the levy that wasn't appropriated that I was going to add in here just to zero out all accounts, but we've already moved the question.
You already moved the, why don't you just leave that and leave the money where it is? On the motion, I shall repeat it. It requires a two-thirds vote. If it's not unanimous, I'll have to take account. And that is to establish and fund a capital reserve for future building projects stabilization fund to help defray the debt service costs of future building design and/or construction projects, and that $1,251,792 be transferred into this fund from free cash. That's the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Well, I'm going to ask, just for the sake of, all those opposed, please rise.
Oh, hey, I like that.
and I will take a visual count that I see 1, 2, 3 people opposed, and therefore, that's not as many who could stand up and say yes, or twice as many. So the motion is carried on a voice vote, and it is now 8:31. I don't do that kind of a voting too often. Then, Article 80, Mr. Hill. Do we have a dollar amount for that?
Yeah, we recommended to refer this to town meeting, and I would suggest because there were no appropriations made to this, that we could probably dismiss it, Mr. Town Manager.
Wait a minute.
Well, we could put the 294 in there, it's a good idea.
If you want to do that, it's, I know.
Slam it.
We'll find every penny.
Can I word this ad hocly? That the town vote to fund the stabilization fund.
Why don't you just to transfer from free cash the sum of,
Well, to transfer from the tax levy $294.02 to the stabilization fund.
tax levy, how much, $294?
And 2 cents.
And the 2 cents. Can we round this off to the nearest nickel?
We need to balance, Mr.
Okay.
Moderator.
To the stabilization fund according to Chapter 40, Section 5B. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I will declare it unanimous. And that is 8:35.
Article 2.
Ms. Walsh, are there any, first at this time,
Motion to take Article 2 off the table?
all right,
Page 23.
Article 2, which is procedurally done through the process of this town meeting, is to receive and accept the various boards, reports from the various town boards. If there's any question about a report, any part of the report, the town reports, this is the time to bring it up. If I don't see that, now don't get excited, I gotta do a couple of more motions after this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is carried, unanimous.
Mr. Moderator?
Are there any, first I'm going to ask, are there any motions for reconsideration on any article other than the budget? If not, then that's...
Mr. Moderator, I move we dissolve this annual town meeting.
All those in favor of dissolving the meeting, I think you've done very well. We are actually now a day ahead of schedule. Which means... And I just want to thank you for making town meeting work. 8:36.
Oh, it's here, 27. Sure.
I'll go over these. Usually if it's